Hello there, and welcome to Sleep Science, where we explore fascinating science in a quiet, relaxing way that helps your mind unwind and drift off to sleep. Tonight's gentle adventure is about breaking one of the universe's most fundamental rules. What if we lived in a world where sound was faster than light? Where you'd hear your friend's laughter before you could see their smile, where thunder would arrive before the lightning that caused it, and where a whisper could beat a photon in a race across the room. Before we begin this quietly absurd journey, feel free to share what time it is and where you're listening from. It's always fascinating to hear where these impossible little thought experiments are floating off to. It's a universe that sounds wonderfully backwards, doesn't it? The kind of place where cause and effect would have to learn entirely new dance steps and where listening would become more important than looking. So settle in, close your eyes if you like, and let's take a slow, curious wander through a world where everything we know about speed has been turned delightfully upside down. Right now, as you listen to these words, sound is traveling toward your ears at roughly 767 miles per hour. That might seem fast, but in the grand scheme of the universe, sound is actually quite the leisurely traveler. Light, meanwhile, is racing along at an almost incomprehensible 670 million miles per hour, making sound look like it's taking a gentle afternoon stroll. This difference in speed is something we live with so naturally that we barely notice it. When you see lightning flash across the sky, you instinctively start counting the seconds until thunder rolls in. 5 seconds means the lightning struck about a mile away. 10 seconds, roughly 2 miles. It's a comforting little calculation that connects us to the storm, letting us measure distance by the lag between sight and sound. Sound moves by nudging molecules. Imagine a line of people holding hands, and someone at one end gives a gentle push. That push travels down the line, person by person, until it reaches the other end. Sound works similarly, creating waves of compression that ripple through air, water, or solid materials. The denser the material, the faster sound can travel. In water, it moves at about 3,400 miles per hour. Through steel, it races along at over 12,000 miles per hour. But it always needs something to push against. In the vacuum of space, sound simply can't exist. There's nothing there to know. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a universe where the rules have quietly rearranged themselves overnight. The first thing you'd notice is your alarm clock. You'd hear the buzz before you could see the digital numbers change. The sound would arrive first, racing ahead of the light that illuminates the display like an eager messenger delivering news before the official announcement. Step outside and the world would feel dreamlike, slightly out of sync with everything you've ever known. You'd hear the birds singing before you could see their beaks open. The rustle of leaves would reach your ears before you could watch them move in the breeze. It would be like living in a world where all the audio tracks had been moved forward by just a fraction, creating a gentle, persistent feeling that reality was running on a different clock. Lightning storms would become entirely different experiences. The thunder would roll in first, a deep rumble announcing the coming light show. Then, a moment later, the sky would crack open with brilliant forks of electricity, as if the universe were providing a delayed visual confirmation of what your ears had already told you. Children would have to relearn the old counting game. Instead of counting between flash and boom, they'd count between boom and flash, measuring distance by how long it took the light to catch up. Traffic would become a symphony of forewarning. You'd hear cars approaching long before their headlights appeared around the corner. Horns would sound before you could see what was causing the commotion. The gentle hum of engines would announce each vehicle's presence, giving pedestrians and other drivers an acoustic preview of what was about to come into view. Cities would develop entirely new rhythms of movement, choreographed first by sound, then confirmed by sight. Conversations would take on an oddly prophetic quality. You'd hear someone's voice before you could see their mouth move, as if their words were racing ahead to prepare you for the visual of them speaking. Phone calls would feel less strange, perhaps, since we're already used to hearing voices without seeing faces. But in-person conversations would require a subtle mental adjustment, a new way of synchronizing what we hear with what we see. The change would be most noticeable in moments of surprise. A door slamming shut would announce itself before you could see it close. Footsteps would herald someone's arrival well before they appeared in the doorway. Breaking glass would sound its alarm before you could witness the shattering. Every sudden noise would become a preview, a gentle warning system giving you just enough time to prepare for the visual that would follow. Musicians would discover an entirely new relationship with their audience. The notes would reach the listeners before they could see fingers on strings or hands on keys. Every concert would become an audio-first experience, with the visual performance following like a shadow, a confirmation of what the ears had already received. Conductors would have to reconsider their role entirely. Their gestures would guide musicians, but the audience would hear the result before seeing the direction. Even the simplest daily activities would feel transformed. Cooking would mean hearing the sizzle before seeing the steam rise from the pan. Typing would produce its familiar clicking rhythm ahead of the visual of fingers striking keys. The microwave would beep its completion before you could see the display showing zeros. Every cause would announce itself before revealing its effect. This new timing would create an interesting psychological shift. We rely heavily on the coordination between sight and sound to understand our world. When that coordination changes, our sense of reality would need to adapt. Some people might find it disorienting at first, this world where sound races ahead like an overeager tour guide. Others might find it oddly comforting, having advance notice of everything about to unfold visually. Children born into this backwards world would know no other way. To them, it would seem perfectly natural to hear before seeing. They'd develop different instincts, different ways of moving through space, different expectations about timing and causality. The idea that light could ever travel faster than sound would seem as strange to them as our reversed universe seems to us. In this backwards world, every conversation becomes a kind of time travel. Imagine sitting across from someone at dinner, hearing their words float toward you faster than you can see their lips form them. "How was your day?" reaches your ears while their mouth is still preparing to move. It's like receiving a letter before watching someone write it, hearing the message before witnessing its creation. This shift would transform the entire landscape of human communication. We're so accustomed to the slight delay between seeing someone speak and hearing their words that we barely notice it exists. But in a sound-first universe, that familiar synchronization would be reversed, creating a new intimacy between speaker and listener. Voices would arrive as pure intention, unaccompanied by the visual cues we usually rely on to interpret meaning. Phone conversations might suddenly feel more natural than face-to-face ones. We're already trained to focus purely on voice when we can't see the speaker, so perhaps remote communication would become the baseline for how we expect all conversations to feel. Video calls, meanwhile, would seem strangely delayed, with faces moving out of sync with the words they're producing, like a poorly dubbed film running in reverse. Long-distance relationships would take on an entirely different character. Imagine being able to whisper, "I love you," from across the country, and having those words race through the air faster than any beam of light could travel. Your voice would become the swiftest messenger in the universe, carrying emotions and intentions across vast distances in ways that would make our current technology seem quaint and slow. The art of listening would evolve into something more sophisticated. Without the immediate visual confirmation of lip movements and facial expressions, we'd become better at reading voices themselves. Tone, pace, and inflection would carry more weight. The subtle pause between words would matter more. The breath someone takes before speaking would become part of the conversation, arriving ahead of everything else, like a gentle announcement. Radio would transform from convenience to necessity. In a world where sound travels faster than light, radio waves would become the premium form of communication, racing information across the globe faster than any visual signal could hope to match. Television would become an oddly secondary medium, always playing catch-up to the audio that arrives first. News would be heard before it could be seen, making radio announcers the true first responders of information. Music would undergo a beautiful metamorphosis. Every song would become a message traveling faster than starlight itself. A symphony performed in London could reach New York faster than the light from the stage lamps could illuminate the musicians' faces. Music festivals would become strange affairs where the sound of distant stages would arrive before you could see the performers, creating a layered soundscape where audio traveled at the speed of dreams while visuals trailed behind like gentle echoes. Recording technology would need complete reimagining. We're used to capturing sound and vision together, synchronizing them perfectly for playback. But in this new universe, recordings would need to account for the delay between audio and visual elements. Directors would have to choreograph films differently, ensuring that the delayed visual elements still made sense when paired with the faster arriving sound. The way we learn language would change fundamentally. Children typically learn to speak by watching mouths move and connecting those movements to sounds. In our reversed world, they'd hear the sounds first, then see the movements that created them. This might actually make language learning easier in some ways, allowing young minds to focus on the pure patterns of speech before getting distracted by the complex visual choreography of lips, tongues, and teeth. Poetry and storytelling would gain new dimensions. Spoken word would literally travel faster than any written text could be seen, making the human voice the swiftest form of literature. Poets would become speed-of-sound messengers, their verses racing across distances faster than any book could be opened or screen could illuminate. The rhythm and meter of poetry would take on new importance as the primary way meaning travels through space. Echo and reverberation would become more noticeable phenomena. In our current world, we hear echoes after we've heard the original sound. But if sound traveled infinitely fast, echoes would become instantaneous, creating complex layered soundscapes wherever multiple surfaces could reflect audio. Every room would become a natural mixing studio, blending original sounds with their reflections in real time. Silence would become even more precious than it already is. In a universe where sound travels faster than light, quiet spaces would be harder to find and more valuable when discovered. The simple act of creating a moment of silence would require new kinds of coordination and planning. Libraries would become temples not just to knowledge, but to the rare and beautiful experience of true quiet in a world where every whisper could travel instantly across any distance. The gentle art of conversation would adapt and flourish in this new environment. People would learn to speak with more intention, knowing their words would arrive ahead of their expressions. The pause between question and answer would gain new meaning. And perhaps, in this world where voices travel faster than light itself, we'd become better listeners, more attentive to the pure essence of what others are trying to communicate. The universe, it turns out, has very strong opinions about which things should go fast and which should go slow. And if we're being honest, the idea of sound outpacing light is a bit like suggesting that snails should suddenly become faster than cheetahs. It's charming to imagine, but the universe has spent nearly 14 billion years perfecting a very particular set of rules, and it's not particularly interested in our suggestions for improvement. Light speed isn't just fast, It's fundamentally woven into the fabric of reality itself. When Einstein discovered that nothing with mass can travel faster than light, he wasn't just describing a cosmic speed limit. He was revealing something deeper, that the speed of light is actually the speed of causality itself. It's the rate at which cause and effect can propagate through the universe. Information, influence, the very notion that one thing can affect another, all travel at the speed of light. Sound, lovely as it is really just molecules bumping into each other in organized waves. It's a mechanical process, like a very sophisticated game of molecular dominoes falling in sequence. For sound to travel faster than light, those molecules would need to somehow communicate with each other instantaneously across vast distances. They'd need to coordinate their movements faster than information itself can travel, which is a bit like asking a chorus to sing in perfect harmony without any of the singers being able to hear each other. There's also the delicate matter of energy. As anything with mass approaches the speed of light, strange things begin to happen. The faster you go, the more energy you need to go even faster, and that energy requirement grows without limit. To accelerate even a single sound wave to light speed would require infinite energy, which is the universe's polite way of saying absolutely not. It's like trying to push a boulder uphill, except the hill gets steeper with every step, eventually becoming a vertical wall that stretches to infinity. But here's where it gets beautifully complicated. Even if we could somehow magic sound to travel faster than light, we'd break something much more fundamental than just our understanding of physics. We'd break the concept of time itself. If sound could carry information faster than light, we could theoretically send messages into the past. Imagine shouting a warning to yesterday's version of yourself, or hearing tomorrow's news today. It sounds delightful until you realize that this would create paradoxes that would make the universe very, very confused. Einstein called this the relativity of simultaneity. Events that appear to happen at the same time for one observer might happen in different orders for another observer, moving at a different speed. If sound traveled faster than light, these different perspectives on timing would create scenarios where effects could precede their causes. You might hear the sound of a glass breaking before anyone had actually dropped it, which would give the universe a rather serious headache. The speed of light also defines something called the light cone, which is an elegant way of describing which events can influence which other events. Imagine a cone of light expanding outward from any point in space and time. Only events within that cone can affect each other. It's the universe's way of keeping things orderly, ensuring that causes always precede effects and that information flows in sensible directions. Faster-than-light sound would poke holes in these light cones, creating a cosmic mess of causality. There's something almost touching about how the universe has arranged things. The speed of light isn't arbitrary. It emerges from the fundamental properties of space and time themselves. It's woven into the equations that describe electricity and magnetism, gravity and quantum mechanics. It's not just how fast light travels, it's how fast reality itself updates, how quickly the universe can process changes and propagate them outward. Sound, meanwhile, is content with its more modest role. It doesn't need to be the fastest thing in the universe to be miraculous. It carries music and laughter, warning calls and whispered secrets. It connects us to each other and helps us navigate the world. The fact that it travels slower than light doesn't diminish its beauty. If anything, it adds to the gentle poetry of how we experience life. Perhaps the most wonderful thing about this impossibility is what it teaches us about the universe we actually inhabit. The fact that light races ahead while sound follows behind creates the rich, layered experience of being alive. We see the lightning, then hear the thunder. We watch the baseball connect with the bat, then hear the crack. This sequence isn't a limitation, it's a gift, a way for reality to unfold in stages, giving us time to process and understand each moment. So, while we can dream of a universe where sound breaks all the rules and races faster than starlight, we can also appreciate the quiet elegance of a cosmos that knows exactly how fast everything should go and has arranged it all with a precision and beauty that no amount of wishful thinking could improve upon. Distance would stop meaning what it used to mean. In our current world, we measure space by how long it takes light to cross it. We talk about light years and light minutes, using the universe's speed champion as our cosmic yardstick. But in a sound-first universe, we'd suddenly find ourselves measuring everything in sound seconds and sound hours, fundamentally reshaping our relationship with the space around us. Consider how profoundly this would change navigation. Right now, we use visual landmarks to find our way, the shape of mountains on the horizon, the glow of city lights, the familiar outline of buildings. But if sound traveled faster than light, we'd probably navigate by ear first, sight second. Cities would develop distinct acoustic signatures, unique soundscapes that would identify them long before you could see their skylines. The rumble of New York would be different from the hum of London, and experienced travelers would know exactly where they were, just by listening. Maps themselves would need complete reimagining. Instead of showing what places look like, they might focus on what places sound like. Acoustic topography would become as important as visual geography. Mountain ranges might be known not for their snow-capped peaks, but for the way they reflect and channel sound waves across valleys. Rivers would be mapped not just for their visual curves, but for the distinct audio signatures they create as water flows over different terrains. The concept of privacy would shift dramatically. In our light-speed universe, you can hide behind walls, around corners, in shadows. Visual obstacles provide natural privacy barriers. But sound waves are much better at bending around obstacles, flowing through small openings, and generally finding their way into spaces where light cannot reach. In a faster-than-light sound universe, privacy would become much more challenging to achieve and much more precious when found. This would revolutionize architecture and urban planning. Cities would need to be designed with acoustic privacy in mind. Sound barriers would become as important as visual barriers. The gentle art of creating quiet spaces would become one of the most valued skills in society. Buildings would be shaped not just to look beautiful and provide shelter, but to manage the flow of faster-than-light sound in thoughtful, intentional ways. Weather prediction would take on new dimensions. We're used to seeing storm clouds gathering on the horizon, giving us visual warning of approaching weather. But storms also generate sound, the rumble of thunder, the patter of rain, the whistle of wind. If these sounds arrived before the visual signs of weather, meteorologists would become acoustic forecasters, listening to tomorrow's weather before it became visible today. The way we think about proximity would change fundamentally. Right now, feeling close to someone often depends on being able to see them clearly. But in a sound-first world, closeness might be measured by audio clarity instead. The ability to hear someone's breathing, the subtle sounds they make while thinking, the gentle rustle of their movements, these acoustic intimacies would become the new measures of being near to someone. Travel would become a completely different sensory experience. Instead of watching landscapes unfold through windows, we'd hear them approaching first. The sound of a distant city would reach us long before its lights appeared on the horizon. Forests would announce themselves with rustling leaves and bird songs before their green canopies came into view. The ocean would call to us with the sound of waves long before we could see the water. This auditory preview of destinations would create a new kind of anticipation. Instead of the excitement of seeing a place for the first time, we'd experience the unique pleasure of hearing it first, building mental images from sound alone before visual confirmation arrived. Every journey would become an exercise in acoustic imagination, listening to places before seeing them. Emergency services would need to completely rethink their approaches. Sirens and alarms would reach people faster than any visual signal, making sound the primary method for warning and rescue coordination. Fire departments would navigate to emergencies by sound first, with their sirens serving as both warning and guidance system in a world where audio traveled faster than the light from flames. The night sky would sound different too. If sound could travel through space faster than light, we might hear the cosmos before we could see it. The crackling of solar flares, the whisper of solar wind, the deep bass notes of gravitational waves, all arriving at our ears before our telescopes could capture their light. Astronomy would become as much about listening as looking, with radio telescopes becoming our primary windows into the universe. Distance education would be transformed. In a world where voices travel faster than images, audio learning would become the premium educational medium. Teachers could reach students across continents faster with their voices than with any visual presentation. The human voice would become the swiftest carrier of knowledge, making spoken instruction more immediate and intimate than any visual aid. Perhaps most beautifully, this new relationship with distance would make the world feel both larger and smaller at the same time. Larger because we'd be constantly aware of sounds from far away, expanding our acoustic horizon. Smaller because voices could connect us across vast distances faster than light itself, making far-off places feel instantly accessible through the simple act of listening. Every song would become a messenger racing faster than starlight. Imagine the implications. A violin played in Vienna could reach the International Space Station before the light from the musician's bow could illuminate their fingers. Music would transform from something that fills rooms to something that could fill galaxies, spreading harmony across the cosmos faster than any star could shine. Concert halls would need to be completely reimagined. In our current world, acoustics are about managing sound within enclosed spaces, creating the perfect balance of reflection and absorption to enhance the musical experience. But in a faster-than-light sound universe, concert halls would become acoustic launch pads, places designed to send music racing across infinite distances. The back row of Carnegie Hall might hear the symphony before the front row could see the conductor's baton fall. This would create an entirely new art form, interplanetary music. Composers could write pieces that unfold across multiple worlds, with movements beginning on Earth and continuing on Mars. Harmonies started in one solar system and resolved in another. The universe itself would become the ultimate concert venue, with melodies spreading through space faster than light can travel, carrying human creativity to corners of the cosmos that telescopes haven't even reached yet. Musicians would develop new relationships with time and space. A pianist in Tokyo could accompany a singer in Sao Paulo in real time, their music meeting somewhere over the Pacific faster than either could see the other's hands move. Orchestras could be spread across continents, with each section in a different city, all playing together in perfect synchronization because their sound would reach each other instantaneously. The recording industry would undergo a beautiful revolution. Instead of capturing performances in studios, we might record music as it travels, documenting the journey of melodies as they race through space. Albums could become acoustic travelogues, following songs as they spread from their point of origin to the edges of the solar system, picking up subtle changes and harmonics along the way. Street musicians would become cosmic broadcasters. A busker playing guitar on a corner in London wouldn't just be entertaining passers-by. Their music would be racing outward at impossible speeds, potentially reaching alien ears on distant worlds before the coins dropped into their guitar case. Every street performance would become an inadvertent message to the universe, a cultural ambassador carrying human artistry to places we've never even imagined. The way we experience rhythm would change fundamentally. Music depends on timing, on the precise coordination of beats and pauses, notes and rests. But if musical sound traveled faster than we could see the musicians creating it, our sense of musical timing would need to adapt. We'd develop new ways of feeling rhythm, perhaps becoming more sensitive to the subtlest variations in tempo and timing. Lullabies would gain new power. Parents could sing their children to sleep from anywhere in the universe, their voices racing across cosmic distances to provide comfort and connection. A mother on a business trip could literally sing her baby to sleep from the other side of the world, her voice arriving faster than any video call could connect them visually. Music therapy would become more immediate and powerful. The healing properties of music could reach patients instantly, regardless of distance. A therapeutic melody composed in one hospital could provide comfort to patients around the globe faster than any medical transportation could deliver physical aid. Sound healing would become a form of instant, universal medicine. Dance would need new choreography. Dancers are accustomed to moving in sync with music they can hear. But if the music arrived before they could see each other move, dance would become an exercise in audio-only coordination. Ballet companies might perform with members on different continents, their movements synchronized by faster-than-light music rather than visual cues. The concept of musical genres might expand beyond Earth. If our music could reach other worlds faster than light, we might eventually receive musical responses, creating the first intergalactic musical collaborations. Jazz fusion could take on an entirely new meaning, blending human creativity with alien rhythms in cosmic jam sessions that span light years. Silence would become an even more precious element of musical composition. In a universe where every note could travel instantly across infinite distances, the strategic use of silence, of carefully placed pauses and rests, would become crucial for creating musical space and preventing cosmic cacophony. Composers would need to consider not just how their music sounds, but how it contributes to the universal soundscape. Music education would expand to include cosmic acoustics. Students would learn not just how to play instruments, but how to compose for infinite space, how to create melodies that maintain their beauty as they race across the universe. They'd study the acoustic properties of different planets, learning to compose pieces that would sound different on Mars than on Earth, adapting their music to alien atmospheres. Perhaps most beautifully, every musical performance would become an act of cosmic communication. Every song would be a message sent out into the universe at impossible speeds, carrying human emotion, creativity, and culture to places we can't yet imagine. In this faster-than-light sound universe, music wouldn't just move us, it would move everything, everywhere, all at once, creating a universal symphony that connects all corners of existence through the simple, powerful magic of melody, traveling faster than light itself. Buildings would have to learn an entirely new way to hold silence. In our current world, architects worry about things like natural light, sightlines, and visual aesthetics. But in a universe where sound travels faster than light, the most important design consideration would become acoustic flow. Every structure would need to be planned not just for how it looks, but for how it sounds, and more importantly, how it manages the instantaneous travel of audio through space. Traditional soundproofing would become one of the most valuable technologies in human civilization. Right now, we insulate against sound for comfort and privacy. But when sound can travel faster than light, acoustic isolation would become essential for basic functionality. Imagine trying to concentrate in a library where you could instantly hear every whispered conversation from every other library on Earth. Sound barriers would become as crucial as walls themselves. Homes would be designed around acoustic privacy zones. Just as we currently plan around natural lighting and views, architects would create sophisticated sound management systems. Master bedrooms might be wrapped in acoustic isolation chambers. Home offices would require complete sonic separation from the rest of the house. The simple pleasure of a quiet morning coffee would necessitate specially designed acoustic sanctuaries. Concert halls would evolve into something entirely new: acoustic spacecraft. Instead of focusing sound inward to create intimate musical experiences, they'd be designed to launch sound outward into the universe. The Sydney Opera House wouldn't just be beautiful to look at. It would become a cosmic broadcasting station. Its distinctive shell-like structure, optimized for sending music racing across the solar system faster than light could follow. Hospitals would require revolutionary acoustic design. Medical facilities would need to balance the instant communication benefits of faster-than-light sound with the need for healing quiet. Recovery rooms would become acoustic islands, carefully isolated from the broader sonic environment. Operating theaters would need precision sound control to ensure that surgical teams could communicate clearly without interference from the global soundscape. Religious spaces would gain new significance as refuges from the acoustic chaos of a sound-first world. Churches, temples, and meditation centers would become precious sanctuaries of carefully crafted silence. The ancient practice of creating sacred quiet would evolve into high art, with spiritual architects designing spaces that could maintain peace even when the rest of the world was full of instantly traveling sound. Office buildings would need complete reimagining. The open office concept would become completely impossible when every conversation could be heard instantly from anywhere. Workplaces would return to small, acoustically isolated spaces, but with sophisticated communication systems to maintain collaboration. Meeting rooms would become acoustic bunkers, sealed against the constant flow of sound from the outside world. Cities would develop entirely new skylines based on acoustic rather than visual considerations. Skyscrapers might be designed with sound-deflecting surfaces to channel audio away from residential areas. Urban planners would create acoustic zones, designating certain areas for sound-generating activities and others for acoustic tranquility. The city grid itself would become a giant sound management system. Schools would need to solve the challenge of education in an instantly connected acoustic world. Classrooms would require perfect sound isolation to prevent lessons from interfering with each other. But schools might also develop new teaching methods that take advantage of faster-than-light sound, creating educational experiences that span multiple locations simultaneously. Hotels would market acoustic privacy as their primary luxury amenity. The ability to guarantee guests a good night's sleep in a world where sound travels instantaneously would become more valuable than room service or scenic views. Hotel designers would become acoustic engineers, creating bubbles of calm in an increasingly connected sonic landscape. Public transportation would need fundamental redesign. Buses, trains, and airplanes would require advanced sound management to prevent them from becoming unbearable noise chambers. Commuters would need personal acoustic spaces, perhaps in the form of sophisticated noise-cancelling technology that could block instantaneous sound transmission. Libraries would evolve into temples of silence, using the most advanced acoustic isolation technology available. The traditional shush would become obsolete, replaced by sophisticated systems that could maintain perfect quiet, regardless of what was happening in the acoustically connected world outside. Librarians would become sound engineers as much as information specialists. Movie theaters would face interesting challenges. Films would need to be redesigned for a world where sound arrives before vision. The entire grammar of cinema would change, with audio cues taking precedence over visual storytelling. Theatre design would focus on creating acoustic experiences that work even when synchronized with delayed visual elements. Perhaps most beautifully, this new architecture would create a different relationship between public and private space. In our current world, privacy is largely visual. We close doors and curtains to control what others can see. But in a sound-first universe, privacy would become acoustic. The most intimate spaces would be those that could maintain perfect silence, creating islands of personal quiet in an ocean of instant, universal sound. Architects would become acoustic sculptors, shaping not just physical space, but sonic space. Creating buildings that don't just shelter our bodies, but protect our ears from the constant symphony of a universe where every whisper can travel faster than starlight itself. Life has always been a careful listener, but now it would have to become something else entirely. In our current world, evolution has spent millions of years fine-tuning creatures to navigate by sight first, sound second. But flip that arrangement, and suddenly every living thing would need to develop new strategies for survival in a universe where audio arrives before visual confirmation. Birds would probably adapt most gracefully to this change. They're already acoustic virtuosos, using song for everything from territory marking to mate selection. In a faster-than-light sound world, their melodies could reach potential mates across continents instantly. Migration patterns might be coordinated by sound rather than sight, with flocks following acoustic beacons instead of visual landmarks. Imagine geese honking their way across the world, their calls racing ahead to announce their arrival before their V formations appeared in the sky. Predators would need to completely rethink their hunting strategies. Right now, many rely on stealth, staying visually hidden while moving quietly toward their prey. But when sound travels faster than light, complete acoustic silence would become impossible. Any movement would announce itself instantly across vast distances. Predators might evolve to become acoustic mimics instead, learning to imitate harmless sounds to mask their approach. Prey animals would develop extraordinary acoustic awareness. Instead of relying primarily on vision to spot approaching danger, they'd become incredibly sophisticated listeners, able to distinguish between thousands of different sounds and interpret their meanings instantly. A rabbit's ears wouldn't just be large for gathering sound. They'd be precision instruments capable of analyzing the entire acoustic environment in real time. Bats would suddenly find themselves in a very different world. These creatures have already mastered echolocation, using sound to navigate and hunt in complete darkness. But in a universe where their calls travel faster than light, their acoustic abilities would become almost magical. They could echolocate across continents, using the entire planet as their hunting ground, bouncing sonar calls off mountains and oceans to map the world in real time. Marine life would experience perhaps the most dramatic changes. Sound already travels well underwater, but at speeds much faster than through air. In our reversed universe, whales could communicate across entire ocean basins instantly. Their songs wouldn't just be beautiful, they'd be the fastest form of information transfer on Earth. Whale pods could coordinate their movements across the Pacific in real time, creating synchronized behaviors spanning thousands of miles. Dolphins would become the ultimate acoustic communicators. Their complex language would reach other dolphin communities around the world instantly, potentially creating a global dolphin conversation network. They might develop new forms of intelligence based on instant acoustic connection, solving problems collectively across vast distances through pure sound-based communication. Plants would face interesting evolutionary pressures. While they don't hear in the traditional sense, many plants do respond to vibrations and sound waves. Trees might evolve to communicate through the instant transmission of acoustic signals, warning each other of threats faster than any chemical signal could travel. Forests could become vast acoustic networks, sharing information about weather, disease, and resource availability at the speed of sound. Insects would need new strategies entirely. Many rely on sound for mating calls, but in a world where these calls travel instantly across unlimited distances, the acoustic environment would become incredibly crowded. They might evolve more sophisticated, unique sound signatures, creating acoustic equivalents of visual displays to stand out in the global chorus of instant insect communication. Nocturnal animals would gain significant advantages. Creatures that already rely heavily on hearing for navigation and hunting would suddenly have access to acoustic information from anywhere on Earth. Owls could hunt by listening to prey movements from continents away. Night would become a time of incredible acoustic richness, with sound-dependent creatures able to extend their awareness across the entire planet. Deep-sea creatures might develop the most extraordinary adaptations. In the darkness of ocean depths, where sight is already limited, faster-than-light sound would create new possibilities for navigation and communication. Deep-sea fish could potentially communicate with the surface world, creating vertical acoustic networks that span from the ocean floor to the waves above. Human evolution would probably accelerate in the direction of better hearing. Our ears would become more sensitive, more precise, better at filtering and interpreting the constant stream of acoustic information. We might develop the ability to consciously control our hearing, focusing on specific sounds while filtering out others, like acoustic selective attention on a global scale. Children born into this sound-first world would have brains wired differently from their parents. Their neural development would prioritize acoustic processing, creating humans who are fundamentally more auditory than visual. They might even develop new forms of synesthesia, where sounds create more vivid mental images than actual sight. The most fascinating evolutionary development might be the emergence of acoustic empathy. In a world where emotional sounds, breathing patterns, and heartbeats could be heard instantly from anywhere, living creatures might develop unprecedented sensitivity to the emotional states of others. The ability to feel what others feel through sound alone could become a new survival advantage, creating more connected, more cooperative forms of life. Evolution would compose an entirely new symphony of existence, where every creature becomes both musician and audience in the grand acoustic performance of life on a planet where sound travels faster than light itself. Quiet would become the rarest treasure in the universe. In our current world, finding silence is challenging enough. We close windows against traffic noise, wear headphones to block out distractions, travel to remote places to hear nothing but wind and our own thoughts. But imagine trying to find peace in a universe where every whisper, every footstep, every breath could reach you instantly from anywhere in existence. True silence would become practically impossible to achieve. The gentle hum of a refrigerator in Tokyo would compete with conversations in London. Bird songs from the Amazon would mix with traffic sounds from Mumbai, and the collective acoustic output of 8 billion people would create a constant, planetary symphony that never stops, never fades, never gives anyone a moment of true quiet. This would fundamentally change what it means to rest. Sleep, that precious daily escape into quiet unconsciousness, would require sophisticated technology just to achieve basic peace. Bedrooms would need to be acoustic isolation chambers, sealed against the instant transmission of sound from everywhere else on Earth. The simple act of going to bed would involve entering a carefully constructed bubble of silence, cutting yourself off from the acoustic connectivity of the rest of the world. Meditation would evolve into high art. The ancient practices of mindfulness and contemplation, already challenging in our visually distracting world, would become nearly impossible without extraordinary acoustic discipline. Meditation centers would need to be built like acoustic fortresses, using the most advanced sound-blocking technology available. The ability to achieve inner quiet would require outer silence so perfect that it would be more valuable than gold. Libraries would transform from places of learning into sanctuaries of the rarest human experience, the absence of sound. The hushed atmosphere we associate with reading would become a precious commodity, available only in specially designed acoustic refuges. The simple pleasure of reading a book in complete quiet would require the same level of technological sophistication as space travel. Mental health would face new challenges. Our minds rely on periods of quiet to process information, form memories, and simply rest. In a universe where silence is nearly impossible to find, psychological well-being would depend on access to acoustic isolation. Therapy might involve teaching people to create mental silence even when surrounded by the instant sound transmission from the entire world. But perhaps humanity would adapt by developing new forms of inner quiet. We might learn to achieve peace not through the absence of sound, but through a kind of acoustic meditation, learning to find calm within the global soundscape rather than trying to escape it. Children growing up in this world might develop the ability to mentally filter the constant audio input, creating zones of psychological silence even while surrounded by infinite sound. Hospitals would face particular challenges in creating healing environments. Medical research shows that quiet is essential for recovery, but maintaining therapeutic silence would become a major technical challenge. Recovery rooms would need to be acoustic islands, completely isolated from the sound-connected world. The healing power of silence would become a medical necessity, requiring cutting-edge engineering. Religious and spiritual practices would need to reinvent themselves around the impossibility of traditional quiet. Prayer, contemplation, and worship have always relied on the ability to create sacred silence. In our sound-first universe, spiritual communities might develop new practices that work with sound rather than against it, finding the divine in the acoustic chaos rather than in its absence. The concept of privacy would take on new dimensions. We think of privacy primarily in visual terms, controlling what others can see. But in a world where sound travels instantly everywhere, acoustic privacy would become the ultimate luxury. The ability to have a private conversation, to think out loud without being overheard by everyone on Earth, would require specialized technology and careful planning. Paradoxically, this might make us better listeners. When you can't escape sound, you have to become more sophisticated about processing it. Humans might develop remarkable abilities to focus on specific acoustic information while filtering out the rest. We could become like acoustic librarians, able to instantly find and focus on exactly the sound we want to hear from the global cacophony. The value of natural quiet would skyrocket. Places like deserts, deep caves, or the middle of oceans, locations that are naturally acoustic isolated, would become precious refuges. Tourism would revolve around accessing these rare, quiet spaces. The sound of wind through empty places would become more precious than any music. Sleep science would become one of the most important fields of study. Researchers would work frantically to understand how humans can achieve restful sleep in an environment of constant, global sound transmission. They might discover new states of consciousness that allow the mind to rest even while the ears continue to receive acoustic input from everywhere. Perhaps most beautifully, this challenge might teach us new forms of appreciation for the quiet moments we could still create. The brief silence between words in a conversation would become precious. The pause between musical notes would carry new weight. The gentle quiet of falling snow or the soft hush of waves might become the most valuable sounds in the universe, not because they're loud, but because they represent the closest thing to silence we could find in a world where true quiet has become the rarest treasure of all. In learning to live without silence, we might discover that peace isn't always about the absence of sound, but sometimes about finding harmony within the infinite music of existence itself. Romance would have to reinvent itself around the speed of sighs. In our current world, falling in love often begins with catching sight of someone across a crowded room. But in a universe where sound travels faster than light, love might start with hearing someone's laugh before you could see their smile, listening to the particular rhythm of their breathing before you could watch their chest rise and fall. Long-distance relationships would transform into something almost magical. Instead of waiting hours for text messages or dealing with video call delays, lovers separated by continents could whisper sweet nothings that would arrive instantly, faster than any light could travel between them. "I love you," spoken in New York, would reach ears in Tokyo before the speaker's lips had even finished moving. Every endearment would race across the world at impossible speeds, making distance feel like a much smaller obstacle to intimacy. The way couples communicate would develop new layers of tenderness. You'd hear your partner's voice before you could see their expression, creating a more pure form of emotional connection. The tone of their good morning would reach you before you could see whether they were smiling or still sleepy. Relationships might become more honest, more vulnerable, because voices carry emotion more directly than facial expressions sometimes do. Dating would require completely new etiquette. First conversations would involve hearing someone's personality before seeing their appearance. Online dating might evolve into audio-first platforms where people fall for voices, laughter, and the particular way someone says their name before ever seeing a photograph. Speed dating could become literal speed dating, with conversations traveling at the universe's fastest possible pace. Arguments between couples would need new rules of engagement. In our current world, you can sometimes diffuse tension by changing your expression, offering apologetic smile even while your voice still carries irritation. But when voices arrive first, emotional honesty would become unavoidable. The frustration in your tone would reach your partner before they could see any attempt at visual reconciliation. Relationships might become more authentic, but also more challenging. Wedding vows would gain new meaning. Promising to love someone until the end of time would carry extra weight in a universe where your voice declaring that love could theoretically travel forever, racing through space faster than starlight. Marriage ceremonies might include the exchange of special sounds, personal acoustic signatures that couples create together, unique audio symbols of their bond. The way parents connect with children would change beautifully. A mother singing a lullaby could reach her child anywhere in the universe instantly, faster than light from any star. Parents traveling for work could maintain constant vocal connection with their families, their voices bridging any distance instantly. Children might develop stronger attachments to their parents' voices than to their appearances, recognizing the unique acoustic signature of safety and love. Elderly couples who have been together for decades would find new ways to stay connected. When sight begins to fail with age, the ability to maintain instant vocal contact would become even more precious. The familiar sound of a long-time partner's breathing, their gentle snoring, the way they hum while cooking, all these intimate acoustics would be instantly accessible regardless of physical proximity. Breakups would require new strategies. In our current world, you can avoid seeing an ex-partner by staying away from certain places. But in a universe where voices travel instantly everywhere, avoiding someone's acoustic presence would be nearly impossible. Getting over someone might require acoustic discipline, learning to filter out their voice from the global soundscape of instant communication. First, "I love you" moments would become even more significant. The words would travel between two people faster than light itself, arriving as pure emotion unaccompanied by visual context. The bravery required to speak those words would be matched by their incredible speed of delivery, racing from heart to ear faster than anything else in the universe. Couples would develop private acoustic languages, special sounds and vocal codes that belong only to them. In a world where every voice can travel instantly to any ear, having unique acoustic intimacy would become precious. Lovers might create personal sound signatures that only they share, private melodies that cut through the global cacophony of instant voice transmission. Family dinner conversations would span continents. Grandparents could share meals acoustically with grandchildren on the other side of the world, their voices participating in real-time family discussions even when their bodies are separated by vast distances. The dinner table would become a focal point for global family connection, where every family member's voice arrives simultaneously, regardless of geography. Perhaps most beautifully, the phrase, "hear me out," would take on new meaning in relationships. In a universe where sound travels faster than light, truly hearing each other would become the fundamental basis of love. Couples would fall for each other's acoustic souls first, their visible selves second. Love would literally travel at the speed of sound, which would be the fastest thing in the universe, making every whispered, "I love you," a cosmic event, racing through space faster than starlight itself, carrying human emotion at speeds that even light cannot match. In this backwards universe, love wouldn't just make the world go round, it would make it resonate with the most beautiful sound of all, two hearts learning to listen to each other faster than light can shine. Light, suddenly, would become the slow, patient storyteller of the universe. After spending billions of years as the speed champion of reality, light would find itself in the unfamiliar position of coming in second place, arriving fashionably late to every event it used to announce first. It would become the universe's gentle reminder of what has just happened, rather than the herald of what's happening now. Vision would transform into a kind of time travel. Every time you looked at something, you'd be seeing a delayed replay of events your ears had already experienced. Watching a friend speak would become like watching a movie slightly out of sync, where the audio track runs ahead of the video. Their words would reach you first, fast as sound can travel, followed moments later by the visual confirmation of their lips moving. Sunrises would become entirely different experiences. Instead of light slowly painting the sky while birds sing their dawn chorus, you'd hear the morning birds first, their songs racing across the landscape faster than the sun's rays could travel. The acoustic announcement of dawn would arrive before its visual appearance, making every sunrise feel like a gentle, delayed revelation following an audio preview. Photographers would need to completely reimagine their art. The phrase, "capturing the moment," would take on new meaning when the visual moment always arrives after the acoustic one. Photojournalism would become a profession of documenting visual echoes, preserving the delayed imagery of events that had already been heard around the world. Every photograph would be inherently historical, showing what was seen after it was heard. Movies and television would face fascinating challenges. Currently, we expect audio and video to be perfectly synchronized. But in a sound-first universe, this synchronization would feel unnatural. Film editors might need to learn new rhythms, new ways of coordinating delayed visual elements with instant audio. Movies might develop entirely new grammar, where sound drives the narrative and visuals provide poetic commentary. Artists would discover new forms of beauty in the lag between hearing and seeing. Painters might specialize in capturing the visual moments that follow acoustic events. Sculptors could create works that celebrate the gentle delay of light, the patient way illumination follows sound through space. Art galleries might become places where people go to experience the slower beauty of vision after the faster experience of sound. Reading would become more precious as one of the few purely visual experiences left. Books would provide refuge from the constant acoustic input of a sound-first world. Libraries might market themselves as places where vision takes precedence, where the slower pace of reading provides relief from the instant transmission of voices and music. Stage lighting would need complete reconceptualization. Theatre productions would work with the assumption that audiences hear everything before they see it. Lighting designers would create visual experiences that complement and follow the acoustic elements of performances rather than trying to coordinate with them. Every spotlight would illuminate moments that the audience had already heard unfolding. Architecture would need to consider the aesthetic implications of delayed light. Buildings would still need to be beautiful to look at, but they'd also need to work acoustically first, visually second. Windows might be positioned based on acoustic considerations rather than views. The entire relationship between interior and exterior space would shift to prioritize what can be heard over what can be seen. Weather prediction would rely more heavily on acoustic phenomena. While we'd eventually see storm clouds gathering, we'd hear the thunder long before the lightning became visible. Weather forecasters might become acoustic meteorologists first, visual meteorologists second, tracking storms by their sounds rather than their appearance. Night and day would feel different. Currently, darkness limits our vision, but not our hearing. In a sound-first universe, nighttime would become the period when the acoustic world maintains its speed while the visual world slows to whatever pace light can manage. Nights might feel more connected, more alive with instant sound transmission, while days would add the slower, more contemplative layer of delayed vision. Children would grow up with fundamentally different relationships to their senses. They'd learn to trust their ears first, their eyes second. Their cognitive development would prioritize acoustic processing, with visual confirmation coming as a secondary layer of information. They might even develop impatience with vision, finding it frustratingly slow compared to the instant gratification of sound. Astronomy would become primarily acoustic. If sound could travel through space faster than light, we'd hear the universe before we could see it. Radio telescopes would become our primary windows into space, with optical telescopes providing beautiful but delayed visual confirmation of what we'd already heard from distant galaxies. Perhaps most poetically, light would become the universe's memory keeper. Instead of showing us what's happening now, it would show us what just happened, preserving visual records of moments we'd already experienced acoustically. Every beam of light would carry the delayed story of events, making illumination itself a form of gentle, patient remembrance. In this backwards universe, we'd learn to appreciate light's new role as the tender chronicler of recent history, the soft-spoken narrator who always arrives just in time to show us the beautiful visual echo of what our ears have already heard racing by faster than starlight itself. Every metropolis would become a symphony you could hear from the moon. Picture New York City with its 8 million residents all talking, walking, working, and living in acoustic harmony that reaches the edges of the solar system before the light from a single street lamp could illuminate the sidewalk below. Urban planning would need to solve the unprecedented challenge of organizing human civilization around instant, universal sound transmission. City zones would be redesigned around acoustic compatibility rather than visual aesthetics. Industrial districts would need to be acoustically isolated to prevent the sound of machinery from overwhelming residential areas. But unlike our current world where factories just need to be far enough away to muffle their noise, in a sound-first universe they'd need complete acoustic separation. Every gear turning, every engine running, Every assembly line operating would announce itself instantly across the entire urban area. Traffic management would require revolutionary approaches. Currently, we use traffic lights to control the visual flow of vehicles. But when every car engine, every honking horn, and every tire on asphalt creates instant acoustic signals, traffic coordination would become an exercise in acoustic choreography. Cities might develop sophisticated sound-based traffic systems where vehicles communicate their positions and intentions through carefully orchestrated audio signals. Residential neighborhoods would need acoustic zoning as strict as any noise ordinance ever imagined. The simple pleasure of suburban quiet would require massive technological investment. Every home would need to be an acoustic sanctuary, sealed against the instant transmission of sound from everywhere else in the city. Neighborhoods might be designed with central acoustic filtering systems, community-level sound management that protects residents from urban cacophony. Public transportation would face enormous challenges. Subway systems, with their naturally sound-amplifying tunnels, would become acoustic nightmares unless carefully managed. Every train arrival, every passenger conversation, every turnstile rotation would be instantly audible throughout the entire underground network. Bus systems would need to coordinate their acoustic signatures to prevent overwhelming competition between vehicle sounds. Emergency services would need complete reimagining. Ambulance sirens would reach every corner of the city instantly, but so would every other emergency vehicle. Fire departments, police, and medical responders would need sophisticated acoustic identification systems to prevent their emergency signals from creating a constant urban alarm. The simple siren would evolve into complex acoustic communications that can cut through the city's sound environment. Construction would become a carefully choreographed acoustic ballet. Currently, we schedule noisy construction work for appropriate hours and try to muffle the worst sounds. But when every hammer blow, every drill bit, and every piece of heavy machinery announces itself instantly across the entire metropolitan area, construction coordination would become a citywide symphony. Workers might need to operate in carefully planned acoustic shifts, ensuring that the city's construction projects don't create unbearable sound pollution. Parks and green spaces would become precious acoustic oases. Central Park wouldn't just be valuable for its trees and open space, it would be essential as one of the few places in the city designed for acoustic peace. Urban planners would need to create sound refuges, carefully designed landscapes that can maintain relative quiet, even in a world where city sounds travel instantly to every location. Shopping districts would develop unique acoustic identities. Instead of visual storefront competition, businesses would compete acoustically, creating distinctive sound signatures that help customers find and identify them. The busy marketplace would become a carefully orchestrated audio environment where every vendor, every cash register, and every customer interaction contributes to a managed urban soundscape. Apartment living would require sophisticated acoustic privacy systems. Currently, we worry about hearing neighbors through thin walls. But in a universe where sound travels faster than light, every apartment would need complete acoustic isolation. The sound of someone's morning routine wouldn't just travel through adjacent walls, it would announce itself instantly throughout the entire building. Apartment complexes would become acoustic engineering marvels. City governance would need new departments dedicated to acoustic management. Urban sound coordinators would become as important as traffic planners or waste management specialists. They'd need to balance the acoustic needs of millions of residents, ensuring that the city remains livable despite constant, instant sound transmission from every corner of the metropolitan area. Cultural districts would flourish in new ways. Theatre quarters, music districts, and entertainment areas would become acoustic destinations rather than just visual ones. The sounds of Broadway shows would race across the city faster than any light could travel, making live performance a truly citywide experience. Every concert would become a metropolitan event, with music reaching every neighborhood instantly. Business districts would need sophisticated acoustic privacy for commercial operations. Corporate meetings, financial trading floors, and professional services would all require acoustic isolation to function. The whispered conversations of business deals would need protection from instant transmission across the urban soundscape. Perhaps most beautifully, cities would develop unique acoustic personalities. Each metropolis would become recognizable by its particular blend of sounds, the specific rhythm of its traffic, the distinctive accent of its residents, the unique industrial hum of its economy. Travelers would identify cities by their acoustic signatures long before they could see skylines or landmarks. Urban tourism might focus on experiencing the distinctive sound of different places, making every city a unique musical destination. In this sound-first world, cities wouldn't just be places you go to see, they'd be places you go to hear, each one singing its own song faster than light itself, creating a symphony of human civilization that could be heard from anywhere in the universe. When sound moves faster than thought itself, what happens to the spaces between words? This question would become more than philosophical curiosity. It would be central to understanding consciousness in a universe where acoustic communication outpaces even the speed at which our minds can process information. The relationship between thought, language, and reality would need complete reconsideration. Our inner voice, that constant mental narrator that seems to speak our thoughts to us, would find itself in competition with the external world in unprecedented ways. Currently, the voice in your head operates at the speed of thought, giving you a sense of internal privacy and control over your mental processes. But in a world where external voices travel faster than light, your inner dialogue would always be slower than the acoustic input arriving from outside. This could fundamentally change how we think. Consciousness might become more externally focused, more reactive to the constant stream of faster-than-light acoustic information. The contemplative mind, which relies on internal quiet to process and reflect, would need to adapt to a world where external sound constantly races ahead of internal thought. Meditation and introspection might evolve into forms of selective acoustic attention rather than the pursuit of mental silence. Language itself would undergo profound changes. Words currently travel from mind to mouth to ear at speeds that allow for natural conversation rhythms. But if spoken words could reach any listener instantly, regardless of distance, the very concept of conversation would change. Speaking would become a form of broadcasting, with every utterance potentially reaching anyone, anywhere. The privacy of language would need technological protection. The way we form thoughts might change. Human thinking often involves subvocalization, internally hearing words as we think them. But in a universe where actual sound travels faster than the speed of thought, there might be pressure for our minds to develop faster internal processing to keep up with the pace of external acoustic input. Consciousness might become more efficient, more rapid, more responsive to instant auditory information. Memory would take on new characteristics. We remember sounds differently than sights, often with more emotional attachment and association. In a sound-first universe, memories might become more acoustic than visual, with people remembering the sound of events more vividly than their appearance. This could create richer, more emotionally connected memories, since sound often carries more emotional information than sight. The concept of the present moment would become more complex. Currently, now is somewhat subjective, influenced by the slight delays inherent in all forms of communication and perception. But when sound can travel instantly, the present moment would become acoustically unified across any distance. Everyone could share the same acoustic now, even while their visual experiences remain separated by the slower speed of light. Children's cognitive development would follow entirely new patterns. Young minds learning to think and speak would do so in a world where external voices arrive faster than they can process them internally. This might create generations of humans who are naturally better at rapid acoustic processing, who can think more quickly, who are more comfortable with the constant flow of instant auditory information. The relationship between emotion and sound would intensify. Voices carry emotional information more directly than faces sometimes do, and in a world where voices arrive first, emotional communication would become more immediate, more honest, more vulnerable. The way we feel about each other might depend more on acoustic cues than visual ones, creating deeper but also more exposed emotional connections. Privacy of thought would become a technological necessity rather than a natural condition. Currently, our thoughts are private simply because others can't read them. But in a world where any spoken thought travels instantly everywhere, the distinction between thinking and speaking would become critical. Mental privacy would require conscious discipline about what we voice aloud versus what we keep internal. Philosophy itself would need new frameworks. Questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and communication would change when the fundamental speeds of information transmission are reversed. Philosophical discussions might become more urgent, more immediate, since they could be shared instantly with anyone, anywhere, making every philosophical insight a potential global conversation. The pace of cultural evolution might accelerate dramatically. Ideas, jokes, stories, and innovations could spread across human civilization faster than light itself. Cultural movements might develop and spread so quickly that they outpace people's ability to visually observe their effects. Society might change more rapidly, driven by the instant transmission of acoustic culture. Dreams and sleep would require new understanding. If external sound constantly arrives faster than internal thought, the boundary between waking and sleeping consciousness might become more distinct. Sleep might become the only time when internal mental processes can operate without competition from faster, external acoustic input. Dreams might become more precious as the only truly private, internal acoustic space. Language learning would be transformed. Children could be exposed to any language instantly from anywhere in the world, potentially becoming native speakers of multiple languages simultaneously. The geographical boundaries that currently separate linguistic communities would become irrelevant when any conversation can reach any listener instantly. Perhaps most profoundly, the question of what makes us human might change. If our consciousness adapts to process instant acoustic information, if our thoughts learn to keep pace with faster-than-light sound, we might develop new forms of awareness, new ways of being conscious that are more connected, more immediate, more acoustically unified than anything our current minds can imagine. In such a universe, thinking wouldn't just be a private activity. It would be part of a global acoustic consciousness where every thought that becomes sound joins the universal conversation, traveling faster than light itself. Some inventions would simply never occur to anyone. In our current universe, so many of our greatest technological achievements exist specifically because light travels faster than sound. Radio telescopes, designed to capture electromagnetic signals from distant galaxies, would seem quaint and unnecessary in a world where acoustic signals arrive first. We'd be listening to the universe's sounds long before we'd think to look for its light. Telecommunications would develop along entirely different paths. Alexander Graham Bell's telephone was revolutionary because it allowed voices to travel over long distances through wires. But in a sound-first universe, the telephone might never have been invented at all. Why bother with complex wire networks when voices naturally travel faster than any signal we could engineer? The entire telecommunications industry would be built around managing and filtering natural voice transmission rather than enabling it. Video calling technology would seem backward and frustrating. We invented platforms like Zoom and FaceTime to add visual elements to remote audio communication. But in a world where audio arrives instantly while video signals travel at the slower speed of light, video calls would feel like watching a delayed, out-of-sync movie of conversations we'd already heard. The technology might exist, but it would be an add-on feature rather than a primary communication method. Satellite communication systems would focus entirely on light-speed signals rather than audio. Since sound would travel faster than any electromagnetic transmission, satellites would be useful only for video, data, and visual information. The massive infrastructure we've built to beam audio signals around the world would be unnecessary. Instead, satellites might be designed to catch up with the sound signals that have already reached their destinations. Acoustic engineering would develop in completely different directions. Instead of designing sound systems to amplify and distribute audio, engineers would focus on containing and controlling it. The greatest technological challenges would involve acoustic isolation rather than acoustic amplification. Concert speakers would be replaced by sound-dampening technology designed to keep music from racing across continents uncontrollably. Radio broadcasting would never have developed as an industry. The entire concept of radio depends on electromagnetic waves traveling efficiently across distances. But if sound naturally travels faster than radio waves, there would be no technological advantage to radio transmission. The golden age of radio entertainment, radio drama, and radio news might never have happened. Instead, we might have developed sophisticated acoustic filtering systems to help people tune into specific conversations from the global soundscape. Hearing aids would be completely different devices. Currently, they amplify sound for people with hearing difficulties. But in a world where sound travels instantly from everywhere, hearing aids would focus on filtering and organizing acoustic input rather than amplifying it. They'd be like acoustic search engines, helping people find and focus on specific sounds from the constant flow of global audio information. Sound recording technology would serve different purposes. We currently record sound to capture and replay acoustic events. But when every sound travels instantly everywhere, recording would focus on filtering and organizing rather than preserving. Audio engineers would develop systems for extracting specific sounds from the constant stream of global acoustic information rather than capturing single performances. Military technology would develop around acoustic warfare rather than visual stealth. Stealth aircraft and radar evading technology exist because we primarily detect threats visually and electromagnetically. But in a sound-first universe, military strategy would revolve around acoustic concealment and detection. Armies would need technology to mask their sounds from instant global transmission rather than hiding from visual or radar observation. Medical diagnostic technology would rely more heavily on acoustic information. While we'd still develop visual diagnostic tools like X-rays and MRIs, the medical field would probably prioritize acoustic diagnostic techniques. Doctors might be trained to diagnose conditions by listening to the immediate sounds of the human body rather than waiting for visual test results. Space exploration technology would focus on acoustic rather than optical observation. The Hubble Space Telescope and other optical instruments would still have value, but space agencies would probably invest more heavily in acoustic detection systems designed to listen to the universe rather than look at it. Our understanding of space would come primarily from what we hear rather than what we see. Navigation technology would work differently. GPS systems rely on electromagnetic signals from satellites, but these would be slower than acoustic navigation in a sound-first universe. Instead, we might develop sophisticated acoustic positioning systems that use sound sources rather than satellite signals to determine location. Maps might be acoustic rather than visual, showing what places sound like rather than what they look like. Entertainment technology would prioritize acoustic rather than visual experiences. We'd still have movies and television, but the entertainment industry would probably focus more heavily on audio-first experiences. Virtual reality might be primarily acoustic, creating immersive soundscapes rather than visual environments. The video game industry might develop around audio adventures rather than visual action. Music distribution would face unique challenges. Currently, we have complex systems for recording, distributing, and playing music. But if every musical performance travels instantly everywhere, the music industry would need to solve problems of acoustic copyright and sound pollution rather than distribution and access. Musicians might need licenses to perform, not for intellectual property reasons, but to prevent acoustic overcrowding. Perhaps, most importantly, we'd never develop noise-canceling technology as we know it. Instead of creating devices that cancel sound, we'd develop sophisticated acoustic selection systems that help people choose which sounds to hear from the constant global symphony traveling faster than light itself. Technology would be about acoustic curation rather than acoustic elimination, helping us navigate a universe where every whisper can reach anyone, anywhere, faster than starlight itself. There's something wonderfully absurd about imagining a universe that runs on completely different rules. We've spent these quiet moments together wandering through a world where sound outpaces light, where whispers race faster than starbeams, where the fundamental order of cause and effect gets turned delightfully upside down. And through it all, we've discovered something beautiful about the power of impossible questions to illuminate possible truths. Thought experiments like this one serve as gentle mirrors, reflecting back the peculiar beauty of the universe we actually inhabit. By imagining what would happen if sound traveled faster than light, we've come to appreciate the elegant simplicity of a cosmos where light wins the race. The fact that we see lightning before we hear thunder isn't a limitation. It's part of the quiet poetry that makes our world comprehensible, manageable, and wonderfully predictable. Every impossible scenario we've explored has revealed something profound about our actual reality. When we imagine the challenges of finding silence in a sound-first universe, we discovered how precious quiet really is in our world. When we pictured the difficulties of acoustic privacy, we gained new appreciation for the visual privacy we take for granted. When we explored the beauty of voices racing across galaxies, we came to understand the gentle miracle of light carrying information from distant stars to our eyes. Perhaps the most touching realization is how perfectly suited our universe is to the existence of consciousness like ours. The speed of light isn't arbitrary. It creates the exact conditions necessary for minds to develop, for life to flourish, for love to grow slowly and carefully between beings who can see each other's faces before hearing their words. Our reversed universe, charming as it might be, would be a chaotic place for creatures like us who have evolved to navigate by sight first, sound second. There's also something deeply comforting about the impossibility itself. The fact that sound cannot actually travel faster than light means that our universe has reliable rules, consistent physics, dependable patterns that consciousness can learn to trust. We don't have to worry about waking up in a world where the fundamental constants have rearranged themselves overnight. The speed of light is woven so deeply into the fabric of reality that changing it would unravel everything we know about existence. But perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this impossible journey is how it's reminded us to pay attention to the small miracles we live with every day. The way thunder follows lightning. The slight delay between seeing someone speak and hearing their words. The fact that we can close our eyes to find quiet or hide behind doors to gain privacy. These aren't limitations of our universe. They're features, gentle gifts that make life livable and love possible. Our thought experiment has also shown us the value of the scientific imagination. Science isn't just about discovering what is, it's also about understanding what could be, what cannot be, and why the universe has chosen the particular set of rules it follows. By exploring impossible universes, we learn to appreciate the possible one we inhabit. By imagining different physical laws, we come to understand why the actual laws of physics are so perfectly suited to creating a cosmos capable of supporting complexity, consciousness, and wonder. The gentle impossibility of faster-than-light sound also reminds us that some of the most beautiful ideas are the ones that cannot be. Poetry, music, love, and dreams all traffic in impossibilities, in metaphors that stretch reality until it becomes something more than mere fact. Our imaginary universe, where sound races ahead of light, is like a poem about physics, a love song to the cosmos, a dream about what it might feel like to live inside different physical laws. In the end, this journey through impossibility has been a celebration of the possible. Every challenge we imagined in our sound-first universe has highlighted a corresponding gift in our light-first reality. Every problem we solved in imagination has revealed a solution that already exists in the actual world. Every difficulty we explored has illuminated an ease we hadn't noticed before. As we prepare to drift back to our own universe, where light travels at its steady 300 million meters per second and sound follows at its more leisurely pace, we can carry with us a new appreciation for the quiet perfection of physical laws that allow lightning to flash before thunder rumbles, that let us see each other's smiles before we hear each other's laughter, that create a world where love can grow at exactly the right speed, where thoughts can form in the gentle spaces between words, and where consciousness can unfold in a universe that's neither too fast nor too slow, but exactly as fast as it needs to be for minds like ours to wake up, look around, and find it beautiful. The impossible universe we've imagined together has been a gift, a playground for the mind, a place to explore ideas that could never be but are wonderful to consider. And in that wandering through impossibility, we've discovered something true about possibility, that the universe we actually live in is more perfect, more elegant, and more beautiful than any imagined alternative could ever be. Your morning coffee would announce itself before you could see the steam rise from your mug. Picture starting each day in a world where the gentle bubble and hiss of your coffee maker reaches your ears while the machine itself still appears silent and still. The sizzle of eggs in the pan would greet you before you could watch them begin to cook, and the cheerful pop of toast would sound its completion before you could see the bread emerge, golden and ready. Cooking would become an entirely acoustic art form. Professional chefs would train their ears as carefully as their eyes, learning to recognize the precise sound of perfectly seared meat before they could see its color change. The gentle simmer of a sauce would announce its readiness faster than any visual cue. Kitchen timers might become obsolete, replaced by the cook's ability to hear exactly when something reaches the perfect state of doneness. Breakfast conversations would take on a dreamlike quality, with family members hearing "good morning" and "how did you sleep" before they could see each other's faces. The domestic symphony of a household waking up, the sounds of showers running, doors closing, and footsteps on stairs would create an acoustic preview of the day beginning. Everyone would know who was awake and what they were doing before they could actually see the visual evidence of the morning routine. Mealtimes would develop new social protocols. The clink of silverware against plates would reach everyone at the table instantly before they could see the food being lifted to mouths. Families might develop more sophisticated acoustic table manners, learning to coordinate their eating sounds in ways that enhance rather than overwhelm the dining experience. The simple pleasure of a shared meal would become more musical, more rhythmic, more consciously orchestrated. Shopping would transform into an acoustic adventure. In grocery stores, you'd hear the beep of scanners at checkout before you could see items being processed. The rustle of produce bags, the thud of items being placed in shopping carts, the murmur of price comparisons and shopping list consultations, all would reach shoppers before the visual activity became apparent. Markets might develop acoustic organization systems using sound cues to help customers navigate aisles and find products. Household cleaning would become a sonic experience first. The whir of vacuum cleaners would announce their operation before you could see them in motion. The splash of water in sinks, the spray of cleaning products, the satisfied thud of objects being organized and put away, all would create an acoustic choreography of domestic maintenance. Families might coordinate their cleaning activities by sound, creating household symphonies of productivity. Personal grooming routines would develop new rhythms. The buzz of electric razors, the whir of hairdryers, the click of makeup compacts, all would announce their use before their visual effects became apparent. Bathroom mirrors might become less important as people learn to groom themselves by sound and touch, trusting their ears to tell them when electronic devices are functioning properly. Gardening would involve new forms of connection with growing things. The gentle sprinkle of water on leaves, the whisper of wind through branches, the busy hum of bees among flowers, all would reach gardeners before they could see these interactions. Plant care might become more intuitive, with gardeners learning to recognize the subtle sounds that indicate when plants need water, attention, or protection. Bedtime routines would create family-wide acoustic rituals. The sound of teeth being brushed, pajamas being put on, and books being opened for bedtime stories would announce the evening wind-down before family members could see each other preparing for sleep. Parents might tuck children into bed from anywhere in the house, their voices racing to bedrooms faster than they could walk there themselves. Exercise and physical activity would develop new audio-based feedback systems. The rhythm of running feet, the steady breathing of yoga practice, the satisfying clink of weights being lifted, all would provide instant acoustic information about physical performance before exercisers could see their movements in mirrors or judge their form visually. Even the simple act of getting dressed would become more acoustic. The zip of zippers, the rustle of fabric, the soft thud of shoes being put on, all would announce the process of getting ready before anyone could see the visual transformation. Fashion might become more about how clothing sounds when worn, rather than just how it looks. Perhaps most beautifully, these daily rituals would create unique acoustic signatures for every household. Each family would develop its own morning symphony, its own evening rhythm, its own distinctive pattern of domestic sounds that would identify home in ways that go deeper than any visual recognition. In a world where sound travels faster than light, the simple routines of daily life would become music, and every home would be a concert hall where the ordinary activities of living create extraordinary acoustic poetry that reaches every ear faster than any light could illuminate what makes those beautiful sounds. Baseball would never be the same. The crack of the bat would reach the crowd before they could see the ball make contact, creating a strange anticipation where thousands of people hear the hit before witnessing the swing. Spectators would need to train themselves to listen first, then look, reversing a lifetime of sports watching instincts. The roar of approval or disappointment from fans would race around the stadium faster than anyone could see whether the ball cleared the fence or fell into the fielder's glove. Tennis would become an entirely acoustic sport for television audiences. The distinctive pop of ball meeting racket would announce each shot before viewers could see the ball's trajectory. Professional players might develop new serving techniques based on the acoustic advantage, knowing that their opponents would hear the ball's speed and spin before they could visually track its approach. Wimbledon's famous quiet would become even more precious, as any crowd noise would instantly reach every corner of the grounds. Video games would undergo a complete revolution. Currently, game designers carefully synchronize audio and visual cues to create immersive experiences. But in a sound-first universe, games would need to be designed with audio leading the action. Players would hear explosions, footsteps, and dialogue before seeing their visual representations. This might actually create more realistic gaming experiences, since in real life we often hear dangers before we see them. Children's playground games would develop new rules. Tag would become more challenging when you'd hear someone approaching before you could see them coming. Hide and seek would require complete silence, since any sound would instantly reveal hiding spots to seekers anywhere on the playground. Jump rope would become a musical activity, with children coordinating their movements to the rhythm of the rope hitting the ground before they could see its position. Board games and card games would face interesting acoustic challenges. The shuffle of cards, the roll of dice, the movement of game pieces across boards, all would announce players' actions before opponents could see them. Poker would become nearly impossible in its traditional form, since players would hear each other handling cards before they could see any tells or bluffs. Games might evolve to rely more heavily on strategy and less on physical deception. Swimming competitions would create underwater symphonies. The splash of diving, the rhythmic sounds of different swimming strokes, the muffled cheers from spectators above, all would reach swimmers before they could see lane markers or opponents. Pool decks would become acoustic environments carefully designed to enhance rather than overwhelm the auditory experience of competitive swimming. Golf would develop a completely different relationship with sound. Currently, golf courses enforce strict quiet during play to avoid distracting players. But in a sound-first universe, the whistle of a golf ball in flight would reach the crowd before they could track its path visually. The satisfying click of a perfect drive or the gentle plop of a ball dropping into the cup would become the primary way spectators follow the action. Racing sports would become acoustic spectacles. Formula One races would be experienced primarily through sound, with spectators hearing the roar of engines and the screech of tires before they could see cars navigating turns. Race car drivers would rely even more heavily on their ability to interpret engine sounds, gear changes, and the acoustic signatures of competitors around them. Basketball would require new strategies when the bounce of the ball, the squeak of shoes on the court, and the swish of successful shots all announce game action before it becomes visible. Players might develop enhanced acoustic awareness, learning to interpret the sounds of teammates and opponents to anticipate plays before they can see them developing. Electronic entertainment would shift toward audio-first experiences. Movie theaters would need to solve the challenge of soundtracks that arrive before visual action. Directors might develop new storytelling techniques that work with instant audio and delayed visuals, creating films that feel more like radio dramas with visual accompaniment than traditional cinema. Amusement parks would become acoustic wonderlands. The screams from roller coasters, the music from carousels, the bells and whistles from games and prizes, all would reach visitors before they could see the rides and attractions creating these sounds. Theme parks might be designed as acoustic journeys, where visitors navigate by following interesting sounds rather than visual landmarks. Gaming arcades would require sophisticated sound management to prevent acoustic chaos. Currently, arcade games compete for attention with flashing lights and colorful displays. But in a sound-first universe, they'd compete acoustically, requiring careful sound design to create attractive but not overwhelming audio environments where multiple games can operate simultaneously. Perhaps most charmingly, children would invent entirely new forms of play based on the acoustic properties of their sound-first world. They might develop games where players try to create beautiful sound combinations, or competitions where the goal is to identify the sources of instantly traveling audio. Playground equipment might be designed to create interesting acoustic effects, turning every swing set and slide into a musical instrument that children can play together, creating symphonies of childhood that would reach parents' ears faster than any light could show them their children's joyful faces. And so, we drift back to our own universe, where light still races ahead and sound follows at its own gentle pace. We've wandered through a world where whispers could outrun starlight, where every symphony would reach the edges of space before you could see the conductor's baton fall, where thunder would announce lightning instead of following it. It's been a beautiful impossibility, like imagining snow that falls upward or rivers that flow through time. But perhaps that's the most peaceful thing about thought experiments like this one. They remind us that our universe, with all its peculiar rules and gentle limitations, is just one way things could be. And in that recognition, there's something deeply calming about the world we actually inhabit. The fact that light wins the race isn't a cosmic accident. It's part of the elegant choreography that makes consciousness possible, that allows love to unfold at exactly the right pace, that gives us time to see each other's faces before we hear each other's words. Tonight, as you settle into sleep, maybe you'll listen a little more carefully to the sounds around you. The gentle hum of electronics, the distant whisper of traffic, the soft rhythm of your own breathing, all traveling at their steady 700 miles per hour, arriving just when they should, in perfect coordination with the light that lets you see the world that makes them. There's something quietly extraordinary about that ordinary arrangement. The thunder will still follow the lightning, just as it always has. Voices will still take their time, traveling through air, while light races ahead to show us the faces that speak them. And in that familiar, impossible-to-change rhythm, there's a kind of cosmic lullaby, a universal heartbeat that's been keeping time since the beginning of everything. Thank you for joining us on this gentle journey through the impossible. If you enjoyed this quiet wandering through science, we'd be honored if you follow us for more peaceful explorations of the universe's many mysteries. Thanks for joining us here at Sleep Science. Sleep well.